All right, so we are back again. I know you guys have been loving rocking with us. We are super excited to keep the party going. We want to thank you for your continued support in not only having these conversations with us, but for tapping into our DMs to let us know what else you want to talk about, what your triggers are, what your triggers have been. And now this week, we're about to talk about something juicy. Am I right, Dani?
This one is good. I'm excited.
Listen, this one is all about wellness, a little self-care, but also orgasms. So we have with us today Michele Harrington. She is the head of strategic partnerships of Foria Wellness. And we're about to tap right on in. I will not keep you waiting. I'm going to bring Michele to the virtual stage. How are you?
Hi.
Welcome.
Good. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here. Listen, I love all conversations that push the limit, and it's not even necessarily the limit. I don't know who decided that there had to be a line that, good girls or good women or good wives weren't allowed to cross. So these types of conversations that women have anyway in the privacy of our homes or in the privacy of our heads to the forefront.
It's true.
Yeah, we just had a conversation last night about our newest campaign, which is Spend a Night Bag. And we had a whole, some people were thrown off because I think my friend was like, oh, when I had to spend a night bag, they called it a hoe bag. So
that's what I was going to say. That's what I used to call it, was the hoe bag in the trunk.
We're trying to reform the hoe bag into the spend a night bag, because you should be prepared with your products. Why should we have to do the walk of shame?
That's true. And why do you got to do it looking busted?
Right.
So many of us are businesswomen, entrepreneurs. Like, you might have to run and do a podcast in an hour. Like, you need to be able to get it together. So I love that.
So, it was campaign. So we were just like, having different people were saying what they would put in there. And then we also shared, we have a, what is it called? During a blink. It's called the, not the Get Wet set. It's the Quickie. So the Quickie has all of our 3 major products in bite size, 5 milliliter bottles, just the right amount that you need for that night out. So
that is awesome.
So we talked about that last night, but there was a lot of people who, like you said, that, have these pre-connotations about what marijuana is and that women shouldn't be doing it. So talked about all of that last night on Clubhouse. The room went an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
Pretty juicy.
I love that, though, because at some point, and I am a major advocate of using your voice. Like, it's so funny. I was just having a conversation with my mom about my daughter when I'm doing her hair. When I was younger, you were taught, you get popped upside the head or popped on the hand, like, be quiet. Be quiet, sit down, and you just take it. And unfortunately, that same type ideology was pushed through so many aspects of how we're supposed to operate. Even if it's with sex, too many women never orgasm. I know 40-year-old women who have been having sex since they were teenagers, and they've never had an orgasm from the penetration of a man. And that's all they sleep with. And I'm just like, do you not say anything? Like, are you not having a conversation? And they're like, oh no, we don't want to piss them off.
Yeah, because they think that they're going to be, if you want to bring a toy into the room, they're going to be inferior to the toy. So I just think that it's about having that communication in the bedroom. The more you communicate in the bedroom, the more both of you know each other's wants and needs. Because if I'm not climaxing, Houston, we have a problem. We're been told that sex begins and ends with penetration, and it just doesn't have to be that way.
And that's not the case. At least for most women, I know if all you're trying to do is penetrate me, how is that going to be fun for you? Because I'm not even going to be moistened enough for you to enjoy it.
Yeah. And that's where I think our products help facilitate that blood flow and that arousal to get to your cells in order to have that plumpness and that blood flow. Because in order to, it's a crazy little, not many people know this, but we have just as much erectile tissue as men do. Ours just internally. So, the amount of blood flow that it takes to get a penis erect is the same amount of blood flow it takes for us to be fully aroused. And so if you're only skimming on the exterior of my vagina, and I'm not fully aroused, it takes a while to get that internally. And that's when you hit those G spots. So our products help facilitate that blood flow to the interior of your vagina, making it more possible and making your G spot orgasm more accessible. You may not always hit it. And I'm not saying that our products are going to make you, you use them one time, it's trial and error. What works for you may not work for me. And your dosage may be different from mine as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And before we go on, I need y'all to know this is the 18 and up conversation. Okay. I need you to be a legal adult for this one, because we're about to tap all the way in. Because for me, many times, especially the conversation around women actually having orgasms, enjoying sex, choosing when and how we want to have sex it's still a bit taboo. But then so is cannabis in many arenas. Like for many things, and it is many things, and for many people, like it's caused, unfortunately, some irreparable damage to not only their livelihood, but also their freedom. It's tarnished careers. And then while for others, it's been like, a healing balm of sorts. So how did you get to the point to where you're like, you know what? Aligning CBD for sexual wellness is what it's going to be. Like, what was that journey like?
This is a funny story, because a lot of people, I have brand ambassadors, and it's women kind of introducing other women to the community and getting, hey girl, you need to use this, kind of like that girlfriend talk. But for me, it was different. My husband went to a BizCon and met the founders of Foria, and he brought samples home and was like, come on, let's try this. And I'm like,
hey,
okay. What's this about? But I'm super sensitive down there, BV, yeast, throw your pH off, all of those things you got to take into account. Just the sensitivity down there, because our vaginas are so absorbent. And so for me, it was, I'm not about to try this. We need to do more research, and I need to figure out what's in these products before I start putting them down there, and then my pH is all out of whack. But that's the good thing about Foria, is that we're 100% organic, no pesticides, parabens.
Yes.
Our CBD is lab tested, third-party lab tested. We have a certificate of analysis for every bottle and batch that we make. The batch, I don't know if you can see it, but the batch numbers are on the bottom of the bottle as well. And our batch numbers correlate with our website, and you can go and say, okay, let me see what was in 500263111. And you go on our website and you can correlate that information and see the results of the testing. So,
I love that.
I realized they were so thorough. I jumped right into bed with them. Literally.
Listen, it's nothing like a thorough,
right?
Hallelujah.
I was hooked. And then I realized that I started sharing it. We were in the age of Zoom, and, I started sharing it with friends, and that the rest is history. For me, the products were life-changing. It helped me get in tune and be able to be available. I have 4 kids, 3 dogs.
That's 7 already, and your husband.
It helped me become available for him, because at the end of the day, after I've done my work with Foria, I've done, I'm Uber here and there for the children. And then I get home and I'm like, I just want to go to sleep, and I feel bad for him. So it allowed me to get out of my head, shut my to-do list off, and become available for him, so that we could have our intimacy and have our time together.
But I love that you brought up your children, because I feel like a lot of times for a lot of mothers, when it comes to motherhood, there's a lot of guilt and mom shaming that are just you're just inundated with that from the moment you get pregnant to probably for the rest of your life. There's just a lot of opinions and there's a lot of internal guilt that you feel. How do you think mothers, because you being a mother and deciding to try this, how can mothers reframe their thought process around using cannabis for wellness, you know, and for sexuality and for, you know, feeling like they're even like allowed.
A part of, yeah, they're human too, right? I think no matter what you do, whether it's breastfeeding versus formula feeding, whether cloth diapers, whether disposable, there's always going to be a mom out there that's shaming. Someone will always be there, you know, to disagree. I think do your research, do what's best for you. Sometimes CBD is a much healthier alternative to traditional pharmaceuticals. And I enjoy helping people figure out when that's possible. I think Foria testimonies, you know, they work for so many different ailments. I just want to empower other women to try CBD and not be afraid of what someone else is going to say. Because at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it brings me back to remembering when, you know, for women, it was, and even those who weren't moms, it was just that major guilt about, I don't want people to know, I don't want to be judged. And I get it, right? It's a real thing. No one is above feeling as though they don't want to be judged. Like, I don't care how confident you are in yourself. Nobody likes that feeling, right? Yeah. And so like in the past, like cannabis was seen as something like, you know, only men use. And so women were expected to either not use it at all, or we'd secretly use it. But like, why do you think like there's been now a major shift in not only women being proud cannabis users and, you know, cannabis dispensary owners, but like how is it like, how is changing the narrative help to push things forward?
So I think for me, growing up, I'm from New York, and in high school, you know, girls were still doing it. They were doing it underneath the bleachers in the back during lunch hours and stuff like that. You know, I remember like thinking to myself, like, they're crazy, like, you know, but I think mainstream media and the big screen skews our perception. I think women are using the plant for more holistic reasons, not just out there, you know, smoking and getting high and getting the munchies, the things that we see on a big screen. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we're out here, you know, my shoulder hurts. I may rub some CBD on it now, this relief salve, you know, or, you know, I'm not feeling like myself. I have a little bit of anxiety. I might go take 2 puffs of, you know, of a pre-roll. So I think social media is really helping to change the narrative, because you see so many more women doing it. There, you know, you just have women all over doing it, especially if you hashtag marijuana or the plant or the benefits of CBD, you see those images. At Foria, we use Instagram and Clubhouse to help educate other women about the benefits of the plant. Plus, our products are organically and regeneratively grown on a farm in New York. And by regeneratively, I mean, you know, farmers use a growing method to pull carbon dioxide out of the plant and greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere, and then put them back into the soil. It's awesome. One of the best,
incredible. Yeah.
One of the best ways to reverse climate change. And I love that sustainable practices are embedded in all of our products, making people more accepting of wanting to use marijuana, and whether you're male or female.
And it's one thing when it comes to like male and female, the differences, but I know a lot of the conversation around marijuana use and, you know, being able to have dispensaries and it being legalized, there's a lot of conversation about how destructive it's been within the Black community, like Alechia was referring to earlier. And I think a lot of us, especially if you didn't grow up maybe using, or your family didn't, because of the fears of jail, and you have uncles that were maybe drug dealers, and there's just a lot of other sides to marijuana that the Black community is a little bit more familiar with.
Yeah.
So I know for a lot of Black people, especially Black women, there is a little bit of even like a deeper stigma than just like, oh, you don't want to get high. It's like criminal to a certain extent. So specifically to the Black community, since it has been demonized and weaponized in so many ways, how do you think we can change the relationship to cannabis and its uses? Like you were talking about, you know, shoulder pain and things like that. Like, what do you feel like is the mindset that we kind of have to start taking on as the Black community to not feel guilt or feel another type of shame like moms do. It's like there's different levels of this.
Of shame.
Yeah,
Exactly. I think educating people. Al's grandmother, we have a company called Viola. And the way that came about is that his grandmother had glaucoma, and we asked her, did she want to vape? She didn't want to vape because she had all these drugs are bad, don't do drugs, all of that. And, at one point she was having so much pain in her eyes that she said, I'd try anything at this point. It's that. And I think she wasn't educated. She didn't know the medicinal benefits of the plant. And then once we shared that with her, and then she realized her pain, she was willing to try anything. And I think, you don't want to get to that point. You want to, help educate people of the legal route, and which will help diversify the industry. The more people you touch upon, the more people you educate, they then in turn can, distribute that information and help change the narrative. I used to think marijuana was only going to get you high. Now I know CBD helps with our well-being on so many different levels: anti-inflammatory properties, pain management, anxiety. So my role at Foria focuses on educating Black communities through our brand ambassador program, and establishing meaningful partnerships with NGOs that's gonna, help change that narrative over time. And just this little tidbit is that the more we educate the masses, we're going to see a change that this industry has a trajectory of reaching like 127 billion by 2027, just by changing, helping people understand. The more we talk about it, the more we're going to change the narrative. And I think it has to be an open conversation.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially the varying ways in which you can use it. I think that's one of the most, and it goes back to education, but that piece there, it allows, kind of like there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than, one way to get to 4. You can do 2 + 2. You can do 1 + 3. You can do 4 + 0, all of which gets you to 4. So it allows you to see that, hey, just because it was a law doesn't mean it was right. It used to be a law that, Black folks were 3/5 a person, like 3/5 a man. Like there were laws where, humans could own other humans. So clearly, just because it's a law does not mean that it's right. And so normalizing that and getting us to the point in the place in the space to where we're like, yes, let's have more conversations to show, that you can do more with weed than just get high, or, the differences between CBD and THC. For a long, long time, sex and weed, they've kind of been used in conjunction, in one way or another, and kind of glorified in movies and in music for decades, right? Mm-hmm. And I never normally would think of weed and intimacy like outside of sex. However, again, with the multiple uses, what do you think that people are missing when they subject intimacy to just sex? Because we were talking about it before. Sex just doesn't just start at penetration. Like there are a whole bunch of steps, before we get there. And then how can cannabis help partners connect in that deeper way? I know I was talking earlier about how I like to combine it with tantric sex. Man, it's game changing.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced sex when you're high. And, it was so funny when I told my partner that we were doing this episode, he was like, oh, and for some reason, and it just is speaking so much to the mentality around it that you don't even want to accept it. But I mentioned to him, I was like, I'm really interested to see how it goes. I don't use regularly. He was like, yeah, but he was like, but during the pandemic, we were getting high and having sex. And I was just like, yeah, but I was just like, we want to talk about the intimacy. He was like, we were super intimate. We would sit and talk for 5 hours. And then he was reminding me of moments we shared that were really deep. Yeah, because we were we were not using CBD, we're using THC for sure. And it was just such a like reminder. And it was so cool to hear him, a guy be like, no, we were being intimate. And I was like, I guess we were being intimate. Because it wasn't just the sex. It was just like we would sit and talk and connect
on a deeper, more intimate.
It was awesome. Now that I reflect, I was like, THC did facilitate that. It did.
I love that question that people are missing and just don't know that CBD helps facilitate that blood flow to your genitals. I think foreplay will help you get hot and aroused, but Foria products help you get there faster. Like so that arousal, oil, the suppositories, like all of those things help us get there faster.
And some of us need that help because some of us, it takes a long time. It's really hard. It's really difficult for so many different reasons.
Helping us get to where they are when they get there and they're ready. And then we're like, wait, hold up.
Because they tend to get there a little faster than we do.
Just a little bit. And I'm like, I know you're there, but I need a little bit more time. And so that's where I think that Foria is helping close that gap because we're getting there we're getting there at the same time as them, especially like I'll go to dinner and on my way home I'll be like, all right, hold on, let me go to the bathroom real fast. I'll go pop in a suppository, and by the time we're home with LA traffic, that suppository from my body temperature has at a time to melt and dissolve and absorb into the walls of my vagina. And when I tell you we have so many receptors for pleasure in our pelvic floor that it melts in and it relaxes you. And you're so much more available for that mind-blowing orgasm when you get there.
That is a game changer. And do you feel like there's any kind of side effects or because how you were like, oh, I need to get this tested. I need to like see what this really is. I need to do my research. Do you know, is there like, oh, if I use it too much eventually, like I know one thing is like with vibrators, if you use the vibrator too much, it desensitizes you. Do you feel like these products have any of those kind of effects where too much use of it can be negative in any way?
Not for me. It continues to keep me available.
Girl, that is a game changer. Okay.
That part. And I think too, I just wanted to touch on your clit being desensitized. Using a vibrator won't desensitize you because you can use that vibrator in other ways to help achieve, that arousal. If you take, my thing is sometimes just go into sex, taking orgasm off the table. Take it off the table and explore what feels good, because sometimes if you take the pressure of achieving that orgasm off the table, you're going to enjoy the route and the different ways to get there.
They say that's why sex between two women tends to be more pleasurable and effective because there isn't like this end goal where everyone's trying to come. Yeah, so that's so interesting that you made that point because that's something that's discussed in that community where it's like, oh, it's not this like pressure to feel that, and you don't get frustrated because it's just really about the journey.
About the journey.
If we have to sum up this whole episode, that right there will help a whole lot of women because I think too, we can't, for many women, I don't want to generalize, but we can't stop thinking. And I know that was probably a hasty generalization, but for many women, that thinking piece where you're thinking about how does my stomach look? How does my butt look? Are my titties sagging too much?
Do I smell good? Like what's happening? So we're so stuck in our heads all the time as women that I know for me, that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about a million things when I'm having sex, which I know is so bad because I'm all about like being present and like enjoying and breathing. But it's like, it takes it. And my boyfriend's always like, babe,
come back.
Like, are you here with me? Like, just let it happen. Just enjoy the moment. Just feel everything. And I'm like, yeah. So you talking about a product that can like help relax me and relax my body and I don't have to do as much work is very enticing.
Because I mean, like she said earlier, we're thinking about, how does my boob look? What does my butt look like? You know, is my stomach hanging? You know, all of these different things that we're not available. And, you know, what I do is not only am I using our sexual intimacy, our products for sexual and wellness, I'm using our wellness part of our line as well. And I'm using the tonic before I go into having sex as well. So I'm using the tonic, which helps, it puts a calm over me. It makes me, I take it in the morning and I take it at night. It helps me sleep, but it also in the morning, you know, when I'm running around with 4 kids trying to get them out the house for school, or just in the pandemic when we weren't running out the house at all, I'm like, my patience is thin. So, you know, our tonic helped me be more calm and be more, have more decision-making abilities without getting to that 0 to 60 that fast. So, but back into orgasms, y'all know that National Orgasm Day is in 2 weeks.
I did not know that.
July 31st is National Orgasm Day.
Okay.
And, I mean, I just think that after having kids, sex was always rushed or scheduled, and that, you know, I'm just having more orgasms and I'm loving it.
It's good. That's a good thing.
It's making me a better person.
It does.
You are releasing
a better person.
Yes, I think so. I mean, how many times do we jokingly say, like, when somebody feels like they have a stick up their ass and they need to get laid, right?
Get laid.
And it's not even just the laid. It's like you need to have an orgasm. You need to come. You need to release that from your body. Sometimes people don't even stop and think like, oh, men are so chill. Men are laid back. Men are more like they get along better. Men, it's like, God, but men are coming more.
Yes.
So maybe there's something to that we should explore, that, hey, maybe the fact that I have this, there's this like statistic, because, you know, like we all know about like the gender pay gap, right? But now lately there's another gap coming to the forefront, the gender orgasm gap. And there was like a study that showed that men reportedly orgasm at a rate of 91%. while women reported orgasm at 64%.
It's so sad.
That is insane. That's
with heterosexual penile.
Between heterosexual heteronormative couples.
Like
we were like, what?
Alarming? Like they're alarming.
That's crazy.
But that's also too why a lot of women who are married don't want to have sex. Like that is the second to the financial problems. And a lot of my friends, like when I was married, because I was one of them, I ain't gonna lie, when I was married, and then also with a number of my friends who are married, one of the consistent complaints is that their wives don't want to have sex. And it's just like, that's because you're 0 to 100 real quick. She is more like 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 to 100. So it happens where many times, and I was talking to one of my girlfriends, she's like, fine, I'm gonna just give him some. It's like, but it'll just be for him. And it's like, why does sex have to just be for them? The enjoyment for them, the pleasure for them. What about us?
And I love Michele talking about like how she's orgasming more now using these products. And it's like, now we can see that cannabis can kind of bridge that gap, like how you said earlier, which I just love that idea, because it just it doesn't really seem like there's much focus on women orgasming. Like, it's really strange. It's like the orgasm is only our responsibility. Like, we need to figure it out. We need to get out of our heads. We need to make ourselves feel good. We need to be it's always on us. It's so like refreshing to just hear that there's something that exists that I can do that doesn't take all this effort. And it feels like it's for me. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really get that, especially as mothers.
For real.
Yeah. So how can it bridge the gap?
I think for years, only men have had products to address their sexual issues. Like, you know, at one point, I think there were 26 pharmaceuticals on the market and not one single thing for women. The fact that we're not orgasm doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. You know, we just need.
It feels like that a lot.
Yeah. We just need to unlearn what we've been taught.
Yeah.
Or learn for the first time, because a lot of people are learning it for the first time.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was about the journey with myself. You need to like be able to touch yourself or to know, we had a whole month in Clubhouse called Masturbation May. And
I'm mad.
Listen, because so many women feel bad about that too. And I'm just like, now, sis, if you don't know what makes you feel good, how the hell?
Tell somebody else.
Yeah, we talked about that in another podcast where we were talking about even as preteens and people that have entered puberty and things like that, there is, even in the media and in movies, it was always acceptable for boys to masturbate. And they would say it, even if there was a little shame associated with it, at least it was talked about. Like in American Pie, I think there's like a scene where like it's obvious that the kid is like masturbating and his mom is like picking on the fact that he started masturbating, right? And there's always scenes like that with teenage boys, and it's just like acceptable, even though it's like gross. And like it's always presented as like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But this is natural for him. We expected him to do this. When do you ever see a scene where it's implied that a 13, 14-year-old girl is masturbating? That's not even a thing. No one even says, you don't even like know what masturbation is. Yes, that's weird.
You can't even touch yourself.
No, touching yourself is a bad thing. Do not touch it. It is just there. It's there for you to pee.
It's there for the man. And it's there for the man. So please, Michelle, tell us more about Masturbation May before we go, because I need to know. This needs to be incorporated into my life.
Right. Well, it was just touching yourself, knowing how to please yourself in order to tell your partner how to please. And a lot of people didn't, for religious reasons and culturally, we had a woman who was 34 years old and had never even taken a mirror to her vagina to know what it looked like. And I just thought, why? Like, let's start. But she didn't even know how to start. She didn't even, she was taught from such a young age, you don't look at it, you don't touch it, just as we just said. So she was like, oh, I'm not. And she was even in a relationship and didn't know, what her own genitals look like. I think so. Also taking the time to notice the different things that are happening to your body when you're aroused by yourself. Or like I said, taking orgasm off the table and just exploring. I think many of us haven't been taught the importance of arousal and how to notice when our bodies are actually experiencing that, that heightened state of arousal that makes orgasm possible. For someone with a vulva, you may start to feel the heightened sense of arousal around your labia. It feels a little bit more firm, more puffy. Your clitoris gets enlarged. Sometimes you'll notice a little bit more lubrication. These are the cues your body's starting to, that your body is sending to you to let you know, blood is flowing to these areas. And that's when I say like, masturbate and touch yourself so you can bring that into the bedroom with your partner.
That definitely helps.
Yeah, you don't know what's happening down there. You're not going to know, what to do.
Yeah. And I love that thought of that, what you just said about realizing the signals that your body sends. Like in my health coaching, we use that for hunger, right? So like it's important for you to realize your signs of hunger so that you can catch it early and you can maneuver it properly. So it's the same thing. I never even thought about it like that with sex. It's like, you don't even know what your body's doing. Like I know for me, now that I'm thinking about it, that you said that, I feel like a pounding. Right?
Yeah,
when I like it literally feels like a heartbeat down there.
It's the amount of blood flow that's flowing.
Yeah, but it's like I never even thought like, oh, wow, what are my signs?
Tells.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I just was like, okay, I'm horny, but it's like, but what does that mean? And what does that really feel like? Yeah. And how and what caused it so that I can repeat that and copy and paste over and over. Yeah. We're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall. There's like no method to the madness.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're more so talking about like being more deliberate with our orgasm and I remember, Alechia, you said this in the podcast, we talked about sex, like being like owning it and like being responsible for it to an extent.
Yeah.
And you can't know that if you're not really being present with yourself and getting to know yourself through masturbation. So it's like all full circle. That's awesome.
It really is.
Like, it always says like you don't look for your partner to make you happy. You have to be happy within yourself. So why are we not, playing with ourselves so we can then, it's full circle.
Listen, in order to be a good choir director, you got to know who your best singers are. In order, listen, you need to know where does he need to play certain things so that we can ensure. And then too, how can you assist in it? What does it look like if all you're watching?
What's your role?
You're like, what's your role? If all you're watching is porn, then you're doing yourself a major disservice because most of it doesn't serve women. Most of it only serves men. Yes, you have some, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the majority. And so by owning our own sexual wellness, because it is a part of wellness and it is a part of intimacy to be able to bring ourselves into climax and to be able to control it. The reason, of course, they can get to 0 to 100 real quick is because they've been practicing since they were like 11.
And it was acceptable for them to be practicing.
We're not. Some of us don't even touch ourselves. The first time I remember being a teenager and like masturbating here and there and stuff like that. But I feel like it didn't really click until my friend, I was like 20 or 19, and my girlfriend bought me a vibrator, my first vibrator. And that's when it started like all kind of coming together. And because I remember growing up in a religious household, when I would masturbate or do anything sexual, it felt very shameful.
Deep shame.
Yeah, like your God is watching.
He's like, oh my God, is God seeing this right now? Like, am I allowed to do this? There's no one else here. So it's like, why do I still feel so guilty about doing this?
Like
so then, even if I did do it, I didn't connect it the same way. In my early 20s, it was like, okay, no, like I need to figure myself out. I need to know what I like. These boys don't know what they're doing. Right. I don't know what I'm doing really, so it's so important for us to do that exploration because it's such a disservice to us as we get older. And, you get into these relationships. There's this new show on Netflix called Sex/Life. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I haven't. I've only watched the beginning and I was like, oh, wait, I gotta wait.
Keep watching. I mean, it's not like the best written thing. You know what I mean? It's like soap opera-y. But it really, I love the premise and I love the message of it about how sexual we are. Like you're talking about like how it takes the same amount of blood flow for us to get aroused. And she pretty much is this mom and she's married and she has like this picture perfect life and she's horny as hell. Yeah. And her husband is not satisfying her. And that's just something that nobody says or talks about. And it's like not expected for us to be like hypersexual, especially once we become mothers and wives. And it's just like, how do you think I became a mom and a wife?
So one of the things that the clubhouse was, they were talking in a night bag and they were talking about bringing condoms in the bag. And it was the funniest because they said, Michelle, don't chime in on this. You got 4 kids.
So you want to bring condoms?
We're sexual.
It's like, I don't get why, like, all of a sudden you become a mom and then you're not supposed to be sexual. It's like, but it takes sex to bring children into the world. That's usually a good amount of sex. Most of us are not just having babies on the first try.
You got to have a couple, trial and error.
Listen, it's so crazy. They expect you to, as soon as you become a mom, you also become a nun.
I was just now put on a nun.
You put on your nun outfit. I no longer suck any penis. I no longer
gag and spit on the dick. Like
nothing.
I no longer do anything. Yeah. I only have sex in missionary because I am now a mom. Let us commence doing all the mom things.
Not quite how it works. It's not how it works. So I did
our prayer.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, ladies, the fact that there is now something on the market for us that is being promoted and steered by a woman, it just, I don't know. I just feel so excited about this. I'm like going to try these products.
A breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm like, okay, if I get my box before National Orgasm Day, I need to make sure like I figure out what I need to do to make sure I can participate the right way. But now, as we are closing out, because again, I have so enjoyed this conversation. Any conversation that is infusing wellness, intimacy, and orgasms is a conversation I want to be a part of. I am raising my hand.
And cannabis. And CBD.
Listen, Where do I raise my hand and where do I sit up, pull up a chair, open a phone app, something? But like, what would you say is the one thing? I know there's probably many. But what would you say is the one thing that you wish that women knew about CBD and our sexual wellness?
I'll start with, I want women to know that not all CBD is created equal.
Ooh.
You need to do your research on what products have COAs, third-party testing, and companies that are transparent with those results. Quality over quantity, and I think purity is the new luxury.
Ooh,
Let's say that. Purity is the new luxury. I also want to exhaust the fact that communication in the bedroom is necessary. Our needs and wants and desires should be addressed, or else, gonna not go anywhere. I feel like if you can't talk about sex with your partner, you shouldn't be having sex with them.
Amen.
And if I can tell anyone anything, it just be to explore yourself first. Ooh. Masturbation
is king. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It so is. And I wish that, I hope in this new generation of, it's like, I know to some extent it is bad that young people have so much access to information before their brains can like fully process it. Mm-hmm. And like sometimes it's like overload. It's not as curated and filtered to them appropriately. But I do like the idea of people having certain conversations after a certain age. Like, I think I wish at 15, 16, when I did start thinking about it more and I did start I lost my virginity around like 17. I wish I had more information.
For sure.
Like I could have really used it, because trying to convince us that just hiding us away in the castle
is going to do it, right?
Locking us away in the castle is going to prevent us from doing these things. It's like, you saw Rapunzel grew her hair, honey, and she threw it down, and she still got a man in the castle. Okay. So it's like, no matter what you do, it's like, this is our nature. Like, don't demonize things that are natural to us. This is who we are. Like, there's so, and we probably have to do another podcast on this, Alicia, because there's so much that goes into the history of women being confined sexually, and how there's just so much, even connecting the Salem witch trials, there was a lot of sexual ideas around that, around women who were prostitutes and things like that would be called witches. And they believed that women use sex to manipulate men and put them under spells. Like, this is real stuff, guys. So we think that things just happen, and that the way the society is just how it is, and it just happened to be like that. But there's a lot of times, a lot of rhyme and reason and things that brought us to this place. Exactly. And just like Michele talked about, we have to unlearn some of those things so that we can really live and experience the fullness of our bodies and our sexuality. And how awesome is it to figure that part out so you can get even closer and deeper with people you love? That's amazing. That's like, what's better than that?
Listen, it is. And this conversation I hope y'all got something from it. Michele, where can we stay connected to you and also to Foria Wellness? Like, where can we do all that?
You can find Foria on Instagram at Foria Wellness. You can also find them on the internet at foriawellness.com. And you can find me on IG, Mrs. Harrington 913.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Women, remember, your bodies are your own. You are not here just to serve a partner, be it male or female. Your bodies are yours first. And using a little CBD to assist in what it is that we need is okay, especially if it's legal where you are.
Right?
Especially even when it's legal. So yes, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Super excited about this conversation. I cannot wait for y'all to tap in. Don't forget, keep sending us those DMs. We want to hear from you. And I hope you join us next week on Triggered AF, the podcast. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Triggered AF. Remember, don't be consumed by your triggers. Confront it and then work to release it. Whether you leave us more triggered than you came, or you're feeling like you've been open to a new perspective, our hope is that you've grown. Make sure to share this episode with a friend who's trigger happy and tag us while you're listening. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next week, pull it together, girl.